Hello and welcome to Good or Bad. Let's just get this one out of the way now. H20 is water, therefore this is Halloween water. Joke done. Previously on Halloween. Let's just go ahead and delete that, and that, and oh god, yes, definitely that. Delete. There we go. After creating too much baggage, they decided to drop Halloweens 4, 5 and 6 and go back to basics. So that means no Jamie, no Thorn Cult, and no goddamn curses. Instead, this movie is set 20 years after the events of the second movie, and serves as a kind of reboot, refreshing the slate but keeping the first two movies intact. Halloween H20 was released in 1998 and was directed by Steve Miner. This movie sees Jamie Lee Curtis return to the role of Laurie Strode after 20 years. Well, 17 years. Halloween 2, while set on the same night, was released 3 years later. It was entirely pointless pointing that out, but point is, Jamie Lee Curtis is back. And now she has a son called John, played by Josh Hartnett. They both live in a private prep school called Hillcrest Academy. Laurie, or as she now goes by Kerry Tate, but I'm just going to keep calling her Laurie, is the headmistress of a school, whereas her son, as you can probably guess, is a student. As you can imagine, Laurie has been very overprotective with her son John over the years, constantly living under the fear that her psycho brother will one day return. Because despite being burnt to hell at the end of Halloween 2, his body was never found. Yes, this movie shares in the same problem that Halloween 4 went through, only this time rather than being comatose and them knowing where he is, they just admit the fact that they didn't notice a giant burning man walking out of Haddonfield. And John slowly strains under the pressure until he eventually comes out and says it.
That's it. That's enough. I can't take it, Mom. He's dead. Michael Myers is dead.
Well, emotions do run deep in this family, don't they? So obviously Michael comes after her in this movie. But where has he been for the past 20 years? Why wait so long? And while that is a fairly valid question, it does bring back some of the mystery that I loved about Michael Myers in the original film. And on this Halloween, Michael is coming back. But first he has to find out where Laurie is. Which is actually where the film starts. I just wanted to get the introductions done for our main two characters first. This woman is a nurse, and she gets her office ransacked by Michael in order to find out where Laurie is. And you may quite possibly be wondering why that information would be there. Well, because she worked with Dr. Loomis all those years ago at Smith's Grove. In fact, she was the nurse that was accompanying Loomis on the night Michael originally broke out. And Dr. Loomis actually has a voice cameo in this movie.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, even the most rudimentary sense of life and death. Good or evil, right or wrong.
That voice doesn't sound a lot like Donald Pleasence, does it? Which is because it isn't. It is in fact the voice of Tom Kane, and I would understand if it were a new line. But it isn't. It's completely 100% a quote from the first film, so why not just lift Donald Pleasence's line from that? I know it wouldn't sound as clear as a new recording, but at least you would have the right voice. But anyway, she had all the old documents pertaining to what happened to Laurie after the events at the hospital in Halloween 2. On the whole, the intro isn't half bad. The nurse gets killed, as well as two teenagers next door. Although, they only had off-screen deaths. So now Michael knows where Laurie is. There is a problem though, and that is Hillcrest is full of students. There is no way Michael could attack and not alarm the police, and that could seriously ruin his night. Luckily, there is a school trip coming up, where the kids spend Halloween camping. If only it was at Camp Crystal Lake. That would be an excellent segue into a Friday the 13th crossover. But anyway, let's get back on track. There are only 4 students not going on this trip, and one of them is John, even though his mother gave him permission to go. It was part of the whole overprotective storyline. But he would rather stay at the mostly empty school and have a little Halloween party with his friends and girlfriend. So come nightfall, the place is a ghost town, with only those 4 students, Laurie, and a guidance counsellor named Will Brennan, played by Adam Arkin. He is Laurie's love interest, and before he inevitably gets killed off, the movie uses him to make Laurie disclose her feelings to the audience. She tells him that she has tried everything to get over what happened to her, and she fears that she is losing her son due to her being too overprotective. But there is one more person I should mention, the security guard Ronnie, played by LL Cool J. He's just a quirky character that adds a little comic relief to the film, but they don't push it too far, they do restrain themselves. But at the same time, he doesn't really add anything to the film because he's not really in it that much. Michael Myers slips past him very easily and even mocks him by standing right behind him while Ronnie looks confused as to what is going on. Old Halloween tactics would have just had Michael kill him by now, but I guess they wanted him to survive for some reason. So now Michael is in the school and starts by killing the phone lines, which immediately puts Laurie on edge. So much so that she goes into John's room and sees that he did not pack. So she grabs her gun and goes searching for her son with Will alongside. At least she came prepared, but given what she's been through, I'm surprised she didn't have an entire armoury. Michael kills his way through John's friends until only his girlfriend is left, and after a bit of a chase they escape him and find Laurie. Finally face to face, that was a good scene.
Get in there, barricade the door, lock it. Do as I say now! Go!
What do we do? What do we do?
Try to live.
I'm guessing the only reason she's leaving them there is to go get help, but wouldn't it be better to stay together? Will panics when he sees Ronnie and starts shooting. Oh, don't worry, Ronnie lives. Although we don't see him again until later, and all he does is stop Laurie from finishing Michael off for good. So maybe it would have been better if he just died now.
Oh, I thought...
Okay, so that's Will out then. And now Laurie has lost her gun. Laurie tricks Michael by putting her blood on a door handle, which makes Michael think she's in there. Then she gives him a clonk on the head. That did seem a bit more slapsticky than usual. You better get used to it. She then grabs the kids and gets them the hell out of there. Oh, look at Michael just sat there like he has been told he can't have the last cookie. They manage to get to the car and escape, but Laurie decides to stay behind. This reflects back to an earlier scene where she was teaching a class and they were talking about Frankenstein and whether he should have faced his monster sooner. That moment really hit home for her, so now she is doing just that. Oh yeah, Michael, you're screwed now. This entire scene is just awesome. And honestly, the fight scene between her and Michael, while it does involve some cowering beneath a table, is pretty badass. It's the only time anyone has ever stood up to Michael without a gun. In the past, it's just been people attacking Michael to buy time to run away. But she doesn't want to escape here. She just wants to slip around him to get in another hit. She is fucking awesome. And this is the bit where she wanted to make sure he was dead for good, but Ronnie came out of nowhere and stopped her. But it doesn't end there. The police are on the scene now and they have put Michael into a body bag and are loading him into an ambulance. She knows he isn't dead, so she steals the ambulance at gunpoint and floors it. Now this entire scene doesn't make that much sense, because you would think the police would have been right behind her, but it actually takes them a good while to catch up to her. So to cut a short scene even shorter, Michael does wake up, but she crashes the ambulance, and that renders Michael trapped. So Michael Myers is dead. There's no way he could survive that. The next movie's gonna have to be pretty inventive to come up with a way to bring him back from that one. Oh, I'm sure it will be. So Halloween H20. It was better than 4, 5 and 6, but still falls short of the first two. I like that they brought Laurie back. She's definitely one of the better aspects of this movie. But when it comes to Michael, I like the guy that played him. Chris Duran did a very good job. It's just a shame they couldn't settle on a mask for Michael until later in production, which led to them reshooting various scenes. Thank God they didn't keep that one though. He looks like a weird alien thing. And let's not forget this one. They couldn't reshoot this scene for whatever reason, so they changed the mask with CGI. Yeah, it shows. All you had to do was settle on one mask before you start filming. Even Halloween 6 managed to get that right. It's just poor filmmaking in action. The music was okay. It didn't stick with me like the music had done in other Halloween movies, and honestly, it just feels like generic suspense music. It's not terrible, it just has no personality. The deaths were okay, none of them were particularly amazing, although a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt with an ice skate through his face was definitely memorable. Something this movie definitely deserves credit for is how they handled the PTSD that Laurie was going through. I imagine it had eased off, so God knows what she went through over those 20 years. But we see that she actually hallucinates Michael, but she has devised a trick to ease her mind and make him disappear, like this. And I thought it was great when she sees him for the first time, but doesn't quite realise that he is really there. And it was very well done, and the movie definitely deserves praise for it. But not a whole lot else. This movie just feels rushed, and full of filler characters that only have script attachments to each other, and no real chemistry. Laurie's son John is so dull, and does nothing in this movie except give Laurie someone to worry about. And I can honestly say, this feels like the fastest Halloween movie to date. Even though it's only really 10 minutes shorter than the previous film, it never drags, it just starts and before you know it, it's over. Which isn't really a bad thing considering there's not much substance in there. All I can say is this is a run-of-the-mill Halloween film, with some really good moments and a few dumb decisions. You have been watching Good or Bad, and I'll see you next time.